What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. We finally made it. We are on the other side of the 2022 NFL Draft. We know where all the rookies are going to be playing this year, so you're probably, if you're watching this, you might have some dynasty drafts already going, or otherwise you are doing some research to kind of get caught up on things. So with this video, I'm simply going to outline kind of all the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends that you guys need to know for this year. And I'll just give you my take and say whether I'm interested in them in Dynasty or even for redraft purposes as well. Because we know of late, sometimes rookies have some very valuable rookie seasons for us in redraft league. So I did put the link in the description below if you want to follow along and check this out. And again, this is the 2022 Dynasty Rookies Draft Recap. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with an overview here. And I like to record these stats. I've been logging these since 2016. In this year's draft, 9 total quarterbacks drafted. That's the lowest since I've begun tracking them since 2016, which I thought was a little interesting. So that's roughly 2.5 below average. Usually there's 11.57 guys total drafted. The running backs kind of smack dab right on average. We had 22. That's up from 2021 and 2022, an average about 21.43 backs over the last 7 drafts. Receivers were a little bit down. And that's what's funny is this was like a strong receiver class, especially a top-heavy one at that. Only 28. That tied the second. That tied the fewest since I've done this over the last 7 years. And then the tight ends. We set a record for tight ends drafted in this one. There's an average of about 13.5, each year. This year we had 18 total tight ends. So we'll get into some of those guys. And then this one, I like this chart because it shows you what round each player, or I guess each position, was drafted in. So you see the 1 QB, Kenny Pickett, 6 wide receivers dominating the first round. Round 2, another wide receiver dominance. And it's not till round 3 where you see the quarterbacks, some tight ends come off the board, and then you see the running backs and the receivers numbers match those. So I think rounds 3, 4, and 5 are extremely interesting. You're going to find some guys in the weeds there for our dynasty drafts. But I'm really digging the prospects in rounds 1 and 2, and we'll see if we can shine some light on some guys for you in the 3rd and 4th round. So that's the recap. That's just kind of the overall numbers that I wanted to get into. And we're going to do this by position. So let's get this started with the quarterback group. And I think it's pretty clear to see the NFL and all the GMs and all 32 teams were pretty underwhelmed with this year's quarterback class. We had to wait until number 20 to get a quarterback off the board. And then after that, we had to wait until 74. So with this one, Kenny Pickett going to Pittsburgh, he's going to be locked in a quarterback battle with Mitchell Trubisky. I think we're going to probably see Mitchell Trubisky get his chance to start this season and see how long he can last. I do projections, and if I had to just put a number to my head right now, we're maybe looking at Kenny Pickett maybe starting in the second half of the season if it goes bad, or if Mitchell Trubisky can kind of keep things on track and get the defense and the running game going. I think Kenny Pickett might just have to take a redshirt year, and really all of these quarterbacks. I think if you're drafting dynasty leagues or redraft leagues, we're not going to really expect any of these guys to play this year unless some crazy injury or Desmond Ridder just comes out of nowhere and beats Mariota. I think that's probably what is going to happen. But Kenny Pickett, we have to watch and see how he looks in training camp. He's probably going to have a 50-50 shot at this with Mitchell Trubisky, so I'm excited about that. I think if you're drafting, I probably wouldn't spend a top 5 pick on him, even in super flex leagues. I think he's an end of the first round kind of guy, and especially if you need a quarterback, he's probably the one guy to go ahead and look at. Otherwise, I think I'm going to be fading this position strongly. I do really like the Desmond Ridder spot, though, and there's not a lot of pressure on him. At pick number 74, the 10th pick in the 3rd round, surprised that he was quarterback number 2 off the board, but I like the fit here, especially with Mariota ahead of him. Now, I think Mariota, it's a little bit different compared to the Trubisky Pickett case. I think there's a strong chance that Ridder could just impress us and eventually take Mariota at some point during the season. So I would say if anyone, maybe Desmond Ridder has the best chance to get some playing time this year. So I think I'm going to probably value Desmond Ridder in the 2nd round of drafts. And again, with Atlanta, they did add some pass catching weapons that we'll look at later. But Desmond Ridder with his legs, nothing really going on in Atlanta. They're going to get another top pick next year. So I like Ridder. If I had to pick one in terms of value-wise, that's the most exciting one. Malik Willis. A lot of people had him as potentially the first quarterback off the board. I never saw it. I actually had him ranked really low on my quarterback board. I think he struggles to see the field, and he's going to want to take off with his legs more often than not. So for me, he was a struggle. It was tough to watch him on tape just because he really couldn't hang and make the decisions mentally down the field. But he's going to wind up in Tennessee, a run-heavy team. We could see a lot of fun things with Malik Willis in a year or two. I think for now, though, Ryan Tannehill's got that job on lock. We're only going to see Malik Willis unless an injury. So for me, in a dynasty draft, like I'm not taking Malik Willis until I won't think about it until the third round. And really, all these guys, the rest of the way, I'm not going to think about them until the third or the fourth round. But Malik, an injury to Ryan Tannehill, it could be some fun fantasy numbers. I guess we saw, Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. That's kind of the spectrum, I think, for Malik Willis. I actually think Tyler Huntley's better than Malik Willis, but he could end up being a Tyler Huntley type player here. And I guess before I get any farther, I want to say for best ball leagues, I might be taking Desmond Ritter with my last pick in a couple of leagues here, just as an extra quarterback for you. Now we'll get to Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. I really like Corral. I think he's got probably the best toolbox to work with. Super athletic. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. So that's why I liked him. Or still a raw prospect, but I think his upside and his ceiling are up there with all these guys, and if not a little bit greater. So he goes 94th overall. I want to applaud the Panthers for not reaching, not panicking and taking a quarterback. Like if they would have did that at 6, like oh my goodness. So congrats Panthers, you guys waited and got one of my favorite quarterbacks, Matt Corral, 94th overall. And again, if you guys are picking dynasty players, Kenny Pickett's going to cost a late first. If you need a quarterback, I get it. Otherwise, I think Desmond Ritter is the guy round 2. And then if you need one in the end of round 2, Matt Corral. I think those are my 2 value guys, Ritter and Corral. I like them the most. Moving on here, Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky. Interesting landing spot with New England, but with Mac Jones there, he's only going to see the field in case of emergencies. Or assuming Jarrett Stidham, nice to see you, nice to know you. And then Brian Hoyer, we'll see if he can lock down the spot. But Zappi, a developmental guy, really strong and really tough. So that's interesting that the Patriots took him at 4.32. And then in the 5th round, we finally saw Sam Howell. I'm super interested in Sam Howell late. I think in the 4th round, maybe even late 3rd, I guess, what do you got to lose? Sam Howell going to be backing up Carson Wentz for at least a year, so when you draft Howell, you're not going to get him unless there's an injury to Wentz or even Taylor Heineke. So he's kind of sitting behind there. But I'm super interested in Sam Howell. I thought he was on a team last year that was gutted, from the 2021 draft. He lost both of his starting running backs and a handful of receivers. So Sam Howell, he might be one of the gems of this draft class. 501, really good pick by Washington. But again, you're not going to get anything from him this year. Be patient on Sam Howell. I think Ritter, Corral, and Howell, those are my 3 guys. Oladukin, Pittsburgh, South Dakota State, just something to monitor there. It's interesting that they did take another one. Skylar Thompson, Miami, just another backup there. And then Brock Purdy, interesting. So I don't really have fantasy thoughts on those guys. And again, to recap, Kenny Pickett, he's a late 1st round pick. I think if he wins the job outright, we'll be interested in some redraft leagues, especially for Superflex. But again, rookie quarterbacks this year is just not the year to be starting and drafting rookie quarterbacks for Superflex leagues. But Desmond Ritter, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, those are the values of this class. So let's move it on here. We're going to start here looking at the class of 2022, the running backs. A lot of names here. I actually think this is a really strong class here. It's deeper than I think we normally see. Of course, at the top, Breece Hall, the Jets moving up to take Breece Hall was very interesting. And actually, it's quite disheartening. Not only for Michael Carter, but it's like, dang it, Breece Hall, man. Like he was supposed to be he was supposed to be the everything, all down, everything back. And now you're going to get him paired up with Michael Carter. That's going to limit some of his PPR upside. So a little bit frustrating with that. But I mean, in terms of the Jets and Zach Wilson, like this is what you wanted. The Jets, we'll get to the receiver that they got later too. But fantastic for the overall offense of the Jets. But for Breece Hall's fantasy value, I think a lot of people are still going to rank him as the 1st overall pick in dynasty rookie drafts, but man, it's a major bummer. He's a really good pass catcher, and now he's got to deal with Michael Carter. Hopefully, there's a way that both these guys can eat, and Breece Hall can at least be, a low end running back 1, but probably a pretty strong running back 2, with Carter still being a PPR running back 2. Very interesting. So the 101, but again, it's not. It doesn't feel as good as it could have been if you would have went to a team like Atlanta or Houston a team that really needed a starting running back. So Brees Hall still the 101, but Kenneth Walker might actually have a better landing spot here. He's with Seattle at the 41st overall pick. Very productive out of Michigan State. I liked what I saw from him, and he's got Rashad Penny. You know, the injury prone. It seems like every year Rashad Penny's been dealing with something. And what this pick tells me more about Chris Carson than it does about Rashad Penny. So I think with Carson and his neck injury, to invest a second round back, I don't think we're expecting good things from Chris Carson this year. So it's looking like a Kenneth Walker with a Rashad Penny as kind of the backup here. So I'm going to expect Kenneth Walker could actually have the better season of the running backs that we see here. So I like Kenneth Walker. He's worth, I think you can make an argument for him as the 101, especially if you're drafting later and we see some more things. But he's definitely a top 2, top 3 pick. And for redraft, I want to just point out that Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker, both these guys will be used as running back 2s probably in redraft, I think. And then if anything happens to Michael Carter or Rashad Penny, it's going to be wheels up for both of those guys. So I'm feeling very strongly about them. And then we got one more second round running back who I'm actually thinking value wise, this is the guy that I'm gonna probably pound the table on, and it's James Cook. Buffalo got him in the end of the second round here. Buffalo was rumored to take like Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker early, but instead they wait. They get the brother of Dalvin Cook, which I think is fantastic. And I mean, let's be real here. Zach Moss probably lost his shot last year. We saw Devin Singletary carry the load down the stretch and end up with like 9 touchdowns in the final 6 games, including the postseason. So it was all Devin Singletary at the end of the season. I think you're probably looking at James Cook being the better in between the tackles guy. And sure, Devin Singletary is still probably going to have some work there in the passing game, but it's kind of looking like the outlook for James Cook in a year or two, man. If Singletary and Zach Moss kind of disappear and they don't get re-signed, James Cook in a year or two, like I could see this being a blowout. James Cook could maybe be the best fantasy value in a year or two. Because I believe Devin Singletary's, I think it's his 4th year. I'm not sure if he's going to be re-signing with the team. And then Zach Moss is entering his 3rd year. So both those guys, been up and down. Singletary looked really strong last year, but keep an eye on James Cook. I think in the early second round, I'm open to adding him, especially if you have multiple picks in the second round. Just take James Cook. Not only are you taking a really strong back from Georgia, but you're getting the running back on the Buffalo Bills. That just, again, patience, be rewarded. Anything happens to Cook, or anything happens to Moss or Singletary, you could be looking at some really nice things out of James Cook. We're moving on here to the 3rd round. We had to wait a long time into the 3rd round. Pick number 27 by Tampa Bay. They get Rachaad White. Really good pass catching back. We'll see. This kind of just puts the kibosh on Keyshawn Vaughn. I still am open to him having some fantasy value, but to me, it's going to be Fournette and then Rachaad White as the probably the leg up on the number 2 spot. So he's a fun guy. We know Leonard Fournette got paid by Tampa Bay, but man, again, in a year or two, who knows who the quarterback will be? But I think Rachaad White, a lot of people really liked him for his passing chops. I think he could be a fun pick. And again, in the mid to late second round, I think that's probably where he's going. Now, I don't know much about Tyrion Davis-Price, but anytime San Fran takes a running back, I pay attention. So I'm not sure on his draft capital. It's probably an early 3rd round pick, or if you're sitting there at the end of the second and it looks good, I don't think you can go wrong with San Francisco running back. I am pretty intrigued though. You have Elijah Mitchell, you have Trey Sermon, you have JaMychal Hasty, you have Jeff Wilson. You have a lot of running backs there in San Francisco, so that's why I think probably not going to touch him till round 3. Now, Brian Robinson Jr. This one was very interesting, and there was like a trail. There's like a trail of breadcrumbs before the draft. The Washington Commanders were bringing in a ton of running backs for their draft visits, which to me immediately gave me worry on Antonio Gibson. So they did get J.D. McKissic back. So not only are you gonna, if you look at Gibson's numbers from the last season, he didn't really take off until J.D. McKissic got hurt. And now with McKissic coming back and then adding Brian Robinson Jr. to compete with Jarrett Patterson as the kind of the main primary backup, you're looking at just more talent for Antonio Gibson to have to hold off, man. And if he gets hurt, he's had chronic foot problems, and he's kind of just had fumbling issues. I'm nervous about Antonio Gibson, and I think if I have Gibson, I might want to try and handcuff him with Brian Robinson, or otherwise, round three, man, Brian Robinson could be a fun pick to just kind of stash. But I think we'll move on here into the fourth round, and I know typically, as far as dynasty running backs go, you want a guy in the first, second, or third round, but there is sometimes exceptions, and I think we're looking at one here in Damian Pierce. Houston Texans drafted him the second pick in the fourth round out of Florida here. And I'll tell you what, guys, the depth chart in the Houston Texans backfield. Let me pull this up actually, because it's kind of just like a little retirement home for running backs. Let me actually pull this up a little bit here. So you got Marlon Mack, who's slated to leave the team, Rex Burkhead. You have Dare Ogunbowale. Damian Pierce is slotted in here as the number three. And I thought they had maybe one more guy. I thought Royce Freeman was still kicking it here. I think that's correct. Royce Freeman and Darius Anderson. So they have a lot of older running backs. Damian Pierce, technically, I think he's the only guy under contract for the 2023 season. So if you want to wait and be patient, I'm really into Damian Pierce. I'd even take him. I mean, I'd take him over Rashad White. I think as far as running back rankings go, I'm going to go Brees, Kenneth Walker, James Cook, and then I'm going to put Damian Pierce at number four, just because I think a lot of people are underrating this Houston Texans offense. I think Davis Mills could take another step forward with healthier defense and a healthier situation, and then probably Brian Robinson at my number five there, just in case. But Damian Pierce, uh, get familiar with him. I think he's going to get a lot of shot towards the middle to the end of the season. Again, it's going to be a war of attrition for these Houston Texans. You're going to probably look and see the veterans get early workload. We'll see if Lovie Smith rewards those veterans, but I have a feeling that once we see Damian Pierce play, he's going to look really, really good. Zamir White, Las Vegas, took him in the fourth round from Georgia. I like Zamir White, not as good as James Cook, but the Georgia running back system was very good for him. And interestingly enough, the Raiders did not pick up the fifth-year option on Josh Jacobs. So if that interests you, a third-round pick on Zamir White, I think that's, snagging some of these backup running backs and just holding on to them and seeing where their value changes in a year or two. Because we kind of know if a running back can play, he can play really quickly. So that's why I don't mind investing a third-round pick in some of these guys. Isaiah Spiller, another one here. He's going to be the number two back. I believe he's going to run away with the number two job in the Chargers system. You have Eckler, but Josh Kelly's been disappointing. Justin Jackson's no longer there. And it's kind of just an open spot there for number two. I really like Pierre Strong here as well. He's going to be – so they brought back James White, the Patriots did, but you're going to look at Pierre Strong and see some very good similarities here. I think he can be an all-purpose back and one that can catch passes and kind of learn from James White. Maybe 2023, we see a bigger role for him, and we'll see where he can go. Hassan Haskins, though, he's going to be the backup in Tennessee. Tennessee did not really retain any of their running backs that they had last year. I think they maybe just added who did they have? I can't remember his name, but they let their big back go. Why can't I read right now? Depth chart. So they did bring back Dontrell Hilliard. That's who it was, but they let the other guy with the Achilles. I can't remember his name, but Hassan Haskins, man, he steps right into the number two role. If anything happens to Derrick Henry, who we know has a lot of mileage, as far as the third round pick, like I'm trying to get Haskins on my team, and then I guess the other guy that I really like here is Tyler Algier. Let me say that again. Tyler Algier out of BYU. Atlanta, they actually just released Mike Davis earlier this morning. So you're looking at a depth chart here. Cordell Patterson, Damian Williams, and then Tyler Algier here, a fifth-round pick. And again, this coaching staff doesn't really have any allegiance to Quadre Ollison, who was a fifth-round pick a few years ago. And again, Damian Williams, a free agent this year. Cordell Patterson, a free agent the year before. He's on a 2-year deal. Anything happens to these guys, I think Tyler Algier could be an interesting guy here. And then after that, I'm not really interested in snagging anybody else here. Snoop Connor's a fun guy. Jerome Ford for Cleveland, just another good back for them. But Kyron Williams, with a good system with the Rams, I'm interested there. Maybe a fourth-round pick on him. But otherwise, Kevin Harris for New England. Tyler Batty for Baltimore, Keontae Ingram for Arizona, Treston Ebner for Chicago, Britton Brown for Las Vegas, and Isaiah Pacheco for Kansas City. So to recap, I'm going to say Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker, James Cook. Those are the top three, hands down. I'm going to put Dameon Pierce at number 4. That's just me talking. And then after that, I think you can get a little creative. I think Hassan Haskins, I think Tyler Algier, those guys are worth considering as the 5th, 6th, 7th best backs. Rashad White's probably in there as well for his pass catching chops. And then, of course, the San Francisco back, Brian Robinson as well. So that's a lot of fun for the running backs. But we'll move on to the wide receivers, where this is probably the meat and the depth of the entire draft here. We'll start at the top. Drake London. First of all, I thought it was pretty cool that the Drake the rapper decided to put a 100K bet down on Drake London being the first wide receiver off the board. I thought that was impressive. So, anyways, Atlanta Falcons, man, good job not taking a quarterback with that 8th overall pick. You get rewarded with your pick of whatever receiver you want, and they take the big body Drake London. Now, I think if you're looking at just the receivers only in this year's class, Drake London is, to me, he was the number 1 wide receiver. I know a lot of people didn't like that he couldn't separate, or he's a big receiver that doesn't really have the ability to kind of make his own plays. But you're going to see a lot of contested catch plays in the NFL translate. To me, he's kind of a hybrid. If you took Mike Evans and Keenan Allen and blended those guys, that's kind of what Drake London can do. So I'm super excited. I know it's Marcus Mariota, but hey, you got to throw the ball to somebody, and Kyle Pitts is there, so that's going to help alleviate some things. But man, Drake London, one of my favorite receivers. He's probably slated to lead the Atlanta Falcons in receptions this year. Garrett Wilson coming in at number 2. I really like Garrett Wilson. I don't know if I like this fit, because now we have to compete with Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, a couple tight ends, Michael Carter, Brees Hall, a lot of attention to the offensive side there in the New York Jets system. So I like Wilson. I don't know if he's going to come in and just blow everybody away and be the number 1 target. So I have my questions there. I still think he's a top 5 dynasty pick. If you need receivers, especially, I think he's going to be a lot of fun. But man, the biggest winner for the Jets is going to be Zach Wilson. He's got so many weapons. So I like Wilson. I can't guarantee you that he's the 2nd or 3rd or 4th best receiver in this class. Chris Olave went right after him to the New Orleans Saints. To me, I think I like Olave better than Wilson. That might be more of a short-term thing. I think Jameis Winston has shown that he can float 2 fantasy wide receivers, and Olave's got a Michael Thomas to kind of be his man or his Batman, and then you got Alvin Kamara there as well. I mean, after that, like, I could legit say Chris Olave is the 3rd best player on that offense, and who knows if Michael Thomas is even going to play this year. So I think there's a legit chance Olave could be the number 1 or the number 2 for sure. His floor is the number 2 receiver for the Saints, and I guess if you include Kamara, he's the number 3 playmaker. But with Garrett Wilson, he's up there with Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is going to be in line for targets. Michael Carter, Brees Hall, a couple tight ends. Like Garrett Wilson, like I think there's a lot of mouths to feed, and we're still unsure of the Jets' offense and Zach Wilson as a whole. Whereas I kind of trust Jameis Winston a little bit more, at least for the next season or 2. But the steal, I think the steal here, if you're sitting at 4-5 and they let Jameson Williams slide to you, he was one of my favorite receivers coming into the draft. I think, the Lions showed, how valuable he was. They were surprised that he was there at 12. They made the move from 32 to get up there. And even if he doesn't start, he might start the season on the PUP list. That's fine. This is Dynasty. We're not looking for him to start right away. But man, I think Jameson Williams could be a lot of fun. And keep in mind, you're not taking Jameson Williams for this season. You're taking him for the thought of next year, where the Lions maybe they draft a quarterback in the top 5. We'll see. So I think that's part of the Jameson Williams take. And then the surprise, Jahan Dotson, Washington. They trade back from, I think, 11. So they didn't want Chris Olave. They traded, with the Saints. They didn't want Jameson Williams, but they wanted Jahan Dotson, who, if you've watched my videos, I put a video out on Jahan Dotson. I liked him a lot. I think he's a lot of fun. 16th overall, I thought was a bit rich, but hey, man, if he's going to be, if there's going to be a receiver that balls, to like 8, 9, 10th, 11th, 12th in your dynasty draft, it's probably Jahan Dotson. And with Carson Wentz, I think it could be kind of nice. And there has been a lot of smoke about Terry McLaurin maybe being traded. But man, I think, especially with Logan Thomas not being guaranteed to be super healthy, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, that's a lot of fun. I think Dotson could be a really sneaky play here. And he could, again, if they let McLaurin walk, man, Dotson could be the future number 1 there sooner than we think. And then, of course, the biggest surprise, man, the Tennessee Titans trading A.J. Brown to Philly, and then Traylon Burks goes to Tennessee. Now, a lot of people did not like the Traylon Burks tape, but I get it. You put him one on one in press man, he could struggle in that. He's not going to burn people vertically, but if you draft Traylon Burks, you better know how to use him. If you use him correctly, he could be the best player in this draft class as long as he's moving. If you get him the ball and he's able to move downfield, good luck trying to tackle him because he's a bull. And if you can get him doing some horizontal things, get him the ball involved behind the line of scrimmage, I think you can do a lot of fun things with Traylon Burks. And I'm interested to see what Tennessee can do as their AJ Brown replacement. Again, so far, all these guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6 first round receivers are a first round dynasty draft player. But man, my Packers, we traded up for Christian Watson on day 2. And I'll tell you what, I think you can make a case for Christian Watson to go ahead of any of these guys besides maybe London and Wilson and Olave. I think for the most part, it wouldn't surprise me if Christian Watson flirted, with the fifth or the sixth pick overall in your dynasty PPR draft. So he's going to be the number one target, I think, for Aaron Rodgers. And yes, there could be some growing pains, but the guy's super athletic. I think you're going to see a lot of attention and effort from Aaron Rodgers to get him on the same page. And it could be a lot of fun, and we know Rodgers is basically signed a 3-year deal. You're getting potentially Aaron Rodgers as number one receiver for the next 3 years. So that's my take with Christian Watson. I'm not going to be surprised if he beats the first round wide receivers in stats his rookie season. So Aaron Rodgers, sign me up. Wan'Dale Robinson, I'm not a fan of this pick, guys. Let him fall, especially if they move Kadarius Toney. I'm interested, but Wan'Dale, kind of a nice, speedy slot receiver out of Kentucky, really fun player. I didn't think he'd go 43rd overall over some of these names, but he's more of a late round 2 dynasty pick. John Mechie from Alabama here, Houston, man. I really like what Houston did in this year's draft. 44th overall. That's about 20 to 30 picks higher than I saw him going on PFF. But man, you're potentially getting the number 2 receiver there in Houston, and we don't know how long Brandon Cooks is going to continue for. So I'm a big fan of John Mechie here, especially in the second round of your drafts. Tyquan Thornton, if he went to Green Bay or Kansas City or the Chargers or somewhere where we had a fun deep shot quarterback, I think I could be into this one. But Tyquan Thornton, 50th overall. He was supposed to be a round 4 player, and Bill Belichick's just living a round or 2 early. So I like Tyquan Thornton, super fast. He's probably worth the late second round pick. George Pickens, I think you saw a lot of teams pass on George Pickens. He kind of reminds me of Denzel Mims, the way he fell just a couple years ago. And that's kind of what Pickens' games is. He's a good vertical receiver, but he really needs to prove that he can do all the other receiving tasks as far as the route tree. And I might actually prefer I think I prefer Alec Pierce and Sky Moore more than some of these guys: Thornton, Mechie, Wan'Dale Robinson. Pierce, kind of a Jordy Nelson clone. He tested off the charts, super athletic, a lot of fun. But man, why do we have to let the Chiefs get Sky Moore? This is almost a direct replacement for Tyreek Hill. So when it's all said and done, I think I'm going to rank Sky Moore up here just behind Christian Watson as my wide receiver number 8. It might even have him hop some of these guys just based on, again, you have Aaron Rodgers throwing to you. You have Patrick Mahomes throwing to you. I want those guys, especially if they're going to be playing with them for the next 3 or 4 seasons. And then after that, we'll just kind of breeze through this. Velus Jones Jr., the Bears reached way too early on a punt return kind of gadget receiver specialist here. I like Jalen Tolbert with Dallas. He's a sleeper here that I really like, and I'm probably going to put him a little bit higher on the list. David Bell with Cleveland. I know a lot of people are going to say he's not fast, a slow 40 and all that stuff, but smooth. You watch the tape, you don't think he's slow. He's a smooth route runner, really conscious with his feet and his footwork. I like David Bell. He's probably a sleeper for me. In the third round, Danny Gray. Again, I don't really trust San Francisco wide receivers to develop, but they have a way of developing players that's really interesting. Eric Azukanma for Minnesota. I like the tape that he put on Texas Tech. So he's an interesting guy with Adam Thielen aging. There's an opportunity for him to be the number 4 receiver this year, and if Thielen gets hurt, he could be bumped into the top 2 or 3. Romeo Dobbs, Nevada. really fun receiver for Green Bay. I think he's no more than a fourth round pick, a late dart here. Calvin Austin with Pittsburgh is fun. Khalil Shakir though with Buffalo, again they got Jamison Crowder there, but this could be your starting slot receiver in 2023. Montreal Washington, fun receiver for Denver from Stanford. Kyle Phillips from UCLA going to Tennessee. Jalen Naylor to Minnesota, Michael Woods. I like Michael Woods to Cleveland, Bo Melton to Seattle, Derek Young to Seattle, and Samori Toure. This is a Packer show. You guys know I like Samori Toure, but a lot of fun. I think for me, it kind of ends, right after Tolbert, Bell, maybe even Dobbs, Calvin Austin, Khalil Shakir. So of all the receivers drafted, I'm probably maybe interested in 15 to 18 of them. So that's it. Let me know if you guys have questions on that. And then we'll finish this video with the tight ends. I think there's just a handful of tight ends that I want to draft this year. Of course, it's Trey McBride. I think I'm willing to spend an early second round pick on him. And I was surprised Jelani Woods got the second overall tight end off the board here at 73. I was really hoping Green Bay would snag him. But the Colts, he's bigger than Mo Alley Cox, and Big Mo is big. So that's interesting. I really like Greg Dulcich here, but he's going to be behind Albert O in Denver. But again, he's someone to keep an eye on. Greg Dulcich was a lot of fun and gained a lot of steam. I like Jeremy Ruckert, but again, he's going to be behind Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzama. Cade Otton, potential future starting tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who knows if Rob Gronkowski coming back? We know Cameron Brate's there and OJ Howard's out of there for sure. Daniel Bellinger, a lot of fun here from San Diego State. New York Giants, they don't really have anybody. They signed Ricky Seals-Jones, but Bellinger could be the guy in a season or two. I like Charlie Kolar for Baltimore. Jake Ferguson, though, keep an eye on him. He might be, again, I would say I'm taking McBride in the second, maybe Jelani Woods and Dulcich in the third. And after that, all these guys are just round four guys. Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar, both interesting, receivers for the Baltimore Ravens. I like Jake Ferguson in the fourth, and then after that, I'm probably just going to stay away from the tight end. So I'll keep it quick, but that's it, man. That's the video. I hope you guys liked the show here. Let me know if you guys have any questions or anything you guys might want to see in the future. I think my next video, I'm going to do a little mock dynasty draft. Will you open up the Google Sheets, and I'll go 48 picks deep. We'll go a typical 12-man team, 12-man league. We'll go 4 rounds deep and get 48 picks for you guys. So that's what's coming up next. Thank you guys so much for your time. Let me know, who's your favorite rookie to draft? If you guys are doing dynasty drafts, who do you need to have on your team? Not only for dynasty, but who do you want in redraft this year? Let's have a conversation in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thank you guys so much. We'll see you in a future video. Peace.